10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to India on Cricket 8, your number one destination for all things Indian cricket related. As always, I'm your host, Nikesh alongside Megha Sinha. Another week of IPL action has passed us by. Lots to talk about, including not just the performances of the teams and how the table's looking at the moment, but India's T20 World Cup squad has also been announced. So we'll be discussing that in some more detail as well. But Megha, just turning our attention to the IPL to start with, looking at that table, a very familiar look at the top of the table, although Rajasthan have temporarily at least been dethroned as we speak now by KKR, who are turning into some machine, aren't they?
Indeed. Rajasthan Royals love close matches, and courtesy that, they found themselves at the top of the table for 5 consecutive weeks. But finally, they've been dethroned rather, and now it's KKR perched at the top. And how amazing a form KKR is in itself. Their spinners, how lethal they've been. And am I allowed to call Sunil Narine a spinner? Because he's an all-rounder, a proper all-rounder. In top 5 in the batting charts as well, highest run getter for his team. And the wonders, the magic that Gambhir has worked on him is there for everybody to see. Because remember, the last few seasons, he was given that opening slot for a game or two, or otherwise as well was tried as a floater. Runs were just not coming, and that short ball strategy was working very well against him. But this time around, teams are trying that ploy, but to no avail. Sunil Narine continues to notch up those knocks, and in the spin department as well, contributing alongside Varun Chakravarti. Phil Salt has been in phenomenal form as well. So it's all working for them, and looks like it's going to be an interesting battle between the war for the top position as well.
Indeed. Look, 461 runs Sunil Narine has got. He's got 14 wickets as well. It's not inconceivable that he could finish as the orange cap holder for most runs and purple cap holder for most wickets as well. He's 4 behind Jasprit Bumrah at the moment.
Yeah.
And Bumrah doesn't look like he's going to make it to the playoffs as well. So that might give Narine a couple of more games potentially to overtake him at some stage. And in terms of the runs, he's got his 3 highest ever scores in T20 cricket in this season's IPL. I mean, he was the guy who played such a crucial role in KKR winning the IPL in 2012 and in 2014. And now nearly a decade later, he's turning it back on. He's back at the top of the order. And that's obviously a lot to do with Gautam Gambhir, who was his captain when KKR last won the IPL trophy. And he said, look, I want him back at the top of the order. He's given him that confidence. He says, you're the man. I know you can get this job done at the top of the order. Bat alongside Phil Salt. Win us games, and that's exactly what he's doing. He just needed that arm around the shoulder, just that little bit of confidence, because he's always had the capability and the skill to be able to do that kind of job at the top of the order. It's not always going to come off. He's not always going to get 80s and 100s and things like that. Even if it doesn't, he doesn't tend to waste too many deliveries in that power play. That's the thing. He always goes for it. He's always playing his shots. And even sometimes when you do see him going at a run of ball for like 7 off 7, it's not for want of trying. He's swinging and missing a lot of the time, and then he's connecting with the odd one. So his intent is brilliant at the top of the order. And we talk about modern day players, don't we? Modern day T20 cricket and all these high scores that we've seen this season, the 260 plus scores from SRH and the 200 plus scores from pretty much everyone through this season. But when you look at Sunil Narine, he's an old school cricketer who's always played cricket in this modern kind of way. And it's beautiful to see. It's just a shame, I think, for the West Indies that he's firmly retired from international cricket, and we're not going to see him in the World Cup next month, isn't it?
Indeed. In fact, there was some conversation that happened between the board and him, but he was pretty clear on not returning, and he's not featured in the last few editions of the T20 World Cup. So not really surprising on that front, but really a shame with the sort of form he is in, and the World Cup being played at his home, he'd not feature in it.
Absolutely. So Rajasthan then slipping into second position. They got a game in hand over the KKR. I mean, those two sides locked in at 16 points. I think you'd be a fool to bet against them getting into those playoffs and potentially even finishing in those top 2 positions. There's a group of sides just perched behind them at the moment. Chennai Super Kings, Sunrisers Hyderabad, Lucknow Super Giants all on 12 points. Then you got the Delhi Capitals lurking dangerously in 6th position, just a couple of points behind with still 3 games left to play in the group stages. You'd think it would be a battle between those sides for the remaining playoff positions. However, out of nowhere, the Royal Bangalore find themselves in 7th position. They're vastly improving their net run rate as they pick up these victories as well. They've won 4 now out of 11 matches. They're on 8 points, so they're 4 points behind that group on 12. And that's at the moment, kind of what would get you into the playoffs. And given their net run rate, it would, another win, and that, would be improved furthermore. They would be in that sort of top 4 shout with a couple of more wins and depending on other results. But it's a long way to go. Mathematically still possible. There's a bunch of sides on 8 points, by the way, but Punjab Kings by Indians, Gujarat Titans, all with worse run rates. Gujarat Titans pretty much done and dusted, given their net run rate, minus 1.320 at the moment. Bangalore, let's talk about Bangalore. Have they left it too late?
Indeed. Obviously, they do have the momentum on their side, but a mountain to climb. And the mid-table huddle that we're talking about has presented a lot of contenders. So it's certainly not going to be easy, but good for them, good for their fans, because the sort of form that they were in, it was absolutely disappointing with the resources that they had, at least in the batting department, for the team to constantly fail to cross the line. And there were matches where they got it close, but still couldn't close the games. So from that point of view, obviously important. And with the next year, mega auctions and all of that, the team needed to find what is working for it and what's not working for it. So I'm looking at it more from next season's point of view and from the point of view of its fans. I think for them to break into the playoffs, miracles need to happen. They happened for the RCB back in 2016 when courtesy Virat Kohli's phenomenal form, they rode on the back of it to make it to eventually the finals. But too challenging. Do you see them realistically making it to the playoffs, finishing in the top 4?
Realistically, I mean, you got to say no, given their position in the table. Just 3 games remaining. They need to win all 3 and hope other results go in their favor, and just keep an eye on that net run rate as well, and just keep improving it game by game. So they're going to need some pretty comfortable wins going forward in their final 3 matches. You wouldn't bet against them winning those 3 matches, but it could just be a step too far. But again, they're riding on the back of Virat Kohli's form, and he's the man. He's the top run scorer in this season's IPL. I told you, didn't I, by the way, at the start of the season, that Kohli is going to have a bumper season. He's going to prove to everybody that he is a T20 player and he should be in that India team, and he obviously is, and will be representing India in that World Cup. I just think, Glenn Maxwell's been a big disappointment this season. The bowlers are kind of getting it together now, but that's been the issue, hasn't it, over so many years. It doesn't matter if you put Dale Steyn in there, if you put Jacques Kallis in there, if you put Mitchell Stark in there, if you put Siraj in there, Anil Kumble, Zahir Khan, all these guys. It doesn't matter. They just don't do it when they put on that red shirt, that red and black shirt, or red and blue as it is this season. But there will be a lot of regrets for RCB, I think, come the end of the season. They've still got a mathematical chance. And look, we all know about their fan base, as well, spending a lot of time in Bengaluru, we should call it, not Bangalore. They're proper fanatics, and they will not give up until that 14th match is complete and it's impossible for them to make the playoffs. Let's see. It would be a great story, wouldn't it? And, there's so many people around the world, not just in India, but around the world, willing RCB to do well because they want Virat Kohli to have that elusive trophy, which he's never won, the IPL. And he's performed so well in it over so many years that they feel that he just deserves it really in some way. I mean, look, nobody has a God-given right to win anything. You've got to do it through performances. But he individually has been one of the stars of all these years of the IPL. And it would be quite fitting if they were to make the playoffs and have a run at that trophy. But it looks a long way off at the moment. I mean, just above them, Delhi Capitals, more realistic chance. They're 2 points better off at the moment. I've got a sneaky feeling that the Delhi Capitals are going to somehow make their way into that top 4. I don't know who it will be at the expense of, because you look at the Chennai Super Kings, their form's been a little bit on and off recently. Matisa Batirana is now going to miss the rest of the season as well through injury, so that might be a big blow for them. Lucknow kind of blow hot and cold. They're an unfashionable side. They seem to get the job done when it's required of them. They've had a good couple of seasons so far in the IPL. Early days for them as a franchise, but they're always in those playoffs over the last couple of years. And then the Sunrisers. I mean, how can you count out the Sunrisers when they're scoring all those runs? I suppose the one way to do it, Megha, is to bat first and put them under pressure. Yeah, get them to chase and see if that works. But that is toss dependent, of course. And all it would take, I think, would be for them to win maybe one or two of their. If they win 2 of their final 3 games, they're pretty much done and dusted into the playoffs. But even if they, win 1. And keep their net run rate pretty healthy, you never know. So a strong battle. I think Delhi will make it into the top 4. I've just got a sneaky feeling that Rishabh Pant isn't quite done yet in these group stages. He wants to give us some playoff magic to work with. Any thoughts from you on that?
Delhi have strung together momentum of their own. And in fact, talking about whether 14 points would be sufficient to make it to the playoffs. Now, there was a season where Sunrisers Hyderabad made it to the playoffs with just 12 points because they had superior net run rate to the other team stuck at 12. But that was when IPL had 8 teams. Now with 10 teams, it's highly likely that the teams with at least 16 points would make it to the playoffs, and anything less than that might not be sufficient. But there still could be room for that one team with 14 points, and RCB still has to win 3 more games, and that's why I kind of dismiss that thought as very fanciful. But talking about the Delhi Capitals, now they've been, of course, doing really well at home. They have a game scheduled today as well, later in the day, against the table, not really the table toppers anymore, but against the number 2 position team, that's the Rajasthan Royals. This game is going to be extremely important, and every other game that follows from here. But also as a test of character against a team that has been on a phenomenal run in this IPL. Rishabh Pant, one of his best seasons in the IPL. He's almost nearing 400 runs, has been phenomenal against pace, and all the concerns around whether he'd be fit enough for the IPL, are we rushing him, all of that has been put to rest. He's been doing the wicket-keeping job as well, is the captain, and alongside, of course, being the batter, he's been back to his aggressive self, something that we didn't get to see for a while in between. And at the top, Fraser McGurk didn't make it to the Australian squad, but for the Delhi Capitals, he's been absolutely on money since the time he made it. Although there are concerns around the other batters, whether it's Prithvi Shaw or other batters who've gotten a look in his place. Akshay Patel being back amongst runs, that's a huge positive. Kuldeep Yadav has been instrumental in the team's wins thus far, an economy of a little over 8 and 12 wickets to his name. Akshay Patel has been chipping in with the ball as well. But apart from the players that we mentioned, Ishant Sharma might just be back because he's back to his full fitness. But apart from the players mentioned, there hasn't been as much contribution. So important for other players also to step up as Delhi harbors that playoff dreams.
Yeah, we just got a message in from Mohammed Osherman, who says RCB will win this IPL. I don't know about that, but they're mathematically still in it. So you never know. All bets are off as far as that is concerned at the moment. Look, Mumbai Indians. We were talking a lot about the Mumbai Indians early on in the season. Hardik Pandya's captaincy and all the booing and everything that was going on with that franchise. It's just been such an awkward season for them, but they continue to fight, and Surya Kumar Yadav back in the side has made a real difference actually since he came back from his injury. They've been a bit more consistent. They've had that more solidity in that middle order. And what a brilliant 100 yesterday from him to win them that game. I mean, they were, 31 for 3 in that run chase, and ended up against Sunrisers. Sunrisers batting first, by the way, 173 for 8. So they don't always score 260 batting first. And then Mumbai off to a decent start first couple of overs through Rohit Sharma and Ishan Kishan, then 3 quick wickets fall, and you think they're in trouble. 31 for 3, no chance. And then Surya Kumar comes in, 102 from 51, not out. Tilak Varma at the other end with a nice little not out as well, just playing a supporting role, just enjoying the view from the non-strikers end most of the time. What a knock that was. They finished that game, 174 for 3 in 17.2 overs, 16 balls remaining in the innings after being in that position early on. And I mean, that shot that he plays down to fine leg, Surya Kumar, is like he's been playing that on loop for the last decade, hasn't he? He's just brilliant. Unbelievable to watch when he's in full flow. Massive boost for India going into the T20 World Cup, him being in great form. And look, the Mumbai Indians, at least something for them to cheer about.
Absolutely crucial. And I'd focus on the second point that you made, India's point of view. Now, Suryakumar Yadav, we remember what he did in the last T20 World Cup. He was instrumental to India's run to the semi-finals. Now, this time around in the IPL, compared to the previous edition of the IPL, he wasn't at his best, or previous editions of the IPL rather. The strike rate, the average was still fine, but compared to what we've seen him in the past, obviously it was on the lower side. But this century is kind of reassuring the fans. He's done that with that century, reassured the fans that he still has those tricks in his bag. And obviously 3 wickets up front for Mumbai Indians. And it looked like this might just be another of those defeats. But that maturity that he showed, the ball was swinging, and obviously it was swinging quite a lot. And that's why there were a lot of extras as well. Runs weren't coming off the bat. They were coming through extras. But took that time to understand the position at that point of time. And then from there on, once he realized that the swing has settled for a bit, has settled down, he then went berserk, went hammer and tongs and unleashed those strokes. Even the 50 came around with a strike rate of 200, and then the century also with a similar strike rate. And Mumbai Indians pocketing those crucial 2 points. Even the mathematical possibilities exist, but obviously Mumbai Indians cannot make it to the playoffs from here on. It is about pride. They would want to salvage that. They've been a franchise, a very successful franchise, but the last few seasons, they've not been able to replicate their success. And that's why Mumbai Indians franchise decided to rope in Hardik Pandya as a captain. Hardik Pandya's performances also have been really hot and cold. In the previous game, picked up 3 wickets. There have been some knocks that have been breezy and quick fire. But apart from that, when we talk about consistent contributions, that has been missing. Jasprit Bumrah continues to impress. Even in the previous game, although not a lot of runs were scored by this IPL standards, but still an economy of less than 6 and managing to mark his presence in the wickets column as well. Extremely, extremely impressive. And there's a comment from Shera that says SRH's wheels are slowly falling off, and that really takes me to my next point. This time around, they were batting first, but we're seeing this pattern where the batting first or chasing when the top order doesn't perform. Despite the depth that they boast of in their batting lineup, when the top order doesn't give them the sort of starts that they've given when they've gone on to score 200s, somehow the middle order is not able to replicate the magic. And that, I think, is going to be important going ahead.
Absolutely. And that was my point that I was making about Delhi making it into the playoffs at the expense of one of those sides. I was thinking potentially Sunrisers, right? Despite all the entertainment they've given us this season, they could well miss out on that top 4. I mean, it's pretty tight in there. You'd think a side that has performed as well as they have with the bat and all these headline performances that they've put up for everyone, and, you know, redefining really the way T20 innings are constructed, that they should be in a better position in the table. But it's that inconsistency again. Despite those massive scores that they've posted, there have been games like this, and they're still not done and dusted. A couple of more wins and they would have been there probably in the playoffs, but they still need those 2 more wins really to secure their place, you feel, in those playoffs. And they've got 3 games left to play. They lose a couple of them, and you never know, they could well miss out, and that would be some story as well. But look, the wheels kind of are falling off a little bit. But you can't knock aside that's given us all that entertainment so far, and they're still in that position. They're still in that fourth position. So at the moment, it's theirs to lose. So you'd rather be in their position than Lucknow or Delhi or even Bengaluru behind them. So it's certainly still all to play for as far as the Sunrisers are concerned. Let's turn our attentions to India now and the T20 World Cup squad. Is that your dog in the background?
Not mine, but I'll go on mute for a while.
Somebody's dog. Okay, excellent. Well, he's obviously, or he or she is obviously very keen to talk about the Indian T20 World Cup squad. And look, we kind of went through a prediction, didn't we, of what the squad would be. I'm not going to boast, but I got 14 out of 15 correct in that. It's just Sandeep Sharma is missing. And who didn't I put in the initial 15? I think it was they went for an extra spinner, didn't they? Akshar Patel. That was it. So Akshar Patel and Sandeep Sharma. So that's the only one that I didn't predict correctly. And this was a prediction. It wasn't what my squad would have been. This is what I thought the selectors would go with. But look, let's run you through it. You've obviously, all those watching and listening have had a little bit of time to digest the T20 World Cup squad. So Rohit Sharma, captain, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Virat Kohli, Suryakumar Yadav, Rishabh Pant does make it alongside Sanju Samson as the other keeper in the squad. Hardik Pandya is vice captain, which I wouldn't have gone with, but he's there. And Shivam Dubey, Jadeja, Akshar Patel, Kuldeep Yadav, Yuzi Chahal, Arshdeep Singh, Bumrah, and Siraj. And then they've named the 4 reserves, which not all of the countries have done, who've named their squads. Shubman Gill, Rinku Singh, Khalil Ahmed and Avesh Khan as the 4 reserves. Initial thoughts to me is that it looks a little bit light on the fast bowling. And I know this is in the Caribbean. I know there's going to be slow and low pitches that are going to turn a little bit. But is Hardik Pandya good enough to be that extra seamer who's going to potentially bowl you 4 overs more often than not? I'm not sure the way he's bowled in this season's IPL. As you say, he's been hot and cold. Bumrah is not a problem. Arshdeep, can bowl at the death and with the new ball. And Siraj might be a little bit of a concern given his form, but overall for India in the last couple of years, he's been brilliant. But his form in the IPL has not been particularly great. The spin department, no real concerns. But how can you leave Rinku Singh out?
I was looking at you intently. I was just waiting for that point to arrive. How can you leave Rinku Singh out, considering the sort of form that he's shown for India? An average of around 80, strike rate around 180. Those are crazy numbers, and the sample size is decent for us to assess the value that he can bring. And obviously the role that he plays, the room for error, the margin for error is really small there, because he donned that finisher's role. And to come at that position, you go not out in most games, and that's why obviously the average does go up. But to counter that, you also have to strike from ball 1, and that's what he's done. And despite that, he's managed consistency. Probably the conversations ahead of the selection were that the team or the management or the selectors wouldn't look too much at the IPL form. Probably they did, and that's why Rinku missed out. Wasn't that great in this IPL, hasn't been that great in this IPL, because bulk of the work for KKR gets done by the top order. Beyond that as well, there's this question around combination and what the team was looking for. They wanted an extra spinner. Yuzvendra Chahal is back after, obviously, for the longest time, not featuring in the squad, the T20I squad for India. So it's more about the combination. But what does the 11 look like? That's a question. And we are factoring in 2 type of pitches. One that would be more balanced. Second, that it helps spinners more. What would your 11 look like? I think that's the question, and it's not an easy question to answer. The 2 wicket keepers, they bring in 2 very different skill sets with the bat, because Sanju is extremely good against spinners, and he has envious numbers since 2021 against spinners, and before that as well was good against spinners. Rishabh Pant, on the other hand, is great against pacers, but doesn't have as great a strike rate against spinners. So what does it look like? Which of those 2 would you want in the 11, and contingent on the conditions as well?
Look, a lot of it depends on conditions
Yeah.
against opposition, depending on what the bowling lineup is made of. I mean, look, we've just got to work with the squad that's in front of us, right? So we can't start messing with that and seeing what our dream 11 would be going into this World Cup. Let's work with the squad in front of us. So Rohit will have to open, and there's a question immediately: who does he open with? Jaiswal will be the obvious one.
Yeah.
Does Kohli then come in at 3? Because there was talk of perhaps them moving Kohli up to open the innings. If he does open, is Jaiswal wasted at 3? That's the thing. But I think those will be the top 3, regardless of order. Rohit to open, and then the other 2 to come in whatever order. Surya Kumar Yadav has to come in at 4. I mean, ideally, look, in an ideal world, he'd come in at 3, but you can't not have Jaiswal in the team. You can't not have Kohli in the team. So Surya to come in at 4, and then it's either Sanju Samson or Rishabh Pant, isn't it? Rishabh is another left-hander, but you've probably got Shivam Dube down the order. So you've got Jaiswal at the top. Do you need another left-hander? Not really. I don't know. There's something about Rishabh Pant in world tournaments, in big games, in crunch moments, in an India shirt. Doesn't matter what the format. I just think he's got that bottle. He can get India over the line. He's a man to get stuck in.
Are you sure the
Sorry?
format doesn't matter? Are you sure the format doesn't matter? Because World Test Championship
Not now.
is
Not now, I don't think. I just think, look, yes, he started as this guy who, played these blitzing innings in Test cricket, and he's won matches for India in Test cricket, and he's been brilliant, and then his form didn't quite translate to white ball cricket. But I think just before his crash, he was coming into his own in white ball cricket as well in an India shirt. And given his form in this season's IPL, he's got a point to prove. Look, he's obviously been through a lot of life learnings given his horrific car crash. Life is short, life is precious. Let's make the most of every moment. That kind of attitude, and that has translated into his cricket this season. I would go Rishabh Pant. I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion, but I just think any side with him in it is better for it. So I'd go with him. I'd go Shivam Dube. That's your number 6. And then it's the question of Jadeja or Patel. I'd go Akshar Patel at the moment, given his superior batting form and, reasonably, tidy bowling performances on the whole. I know he has been expensive on occasion, but Jadeja's not. I mean, Jadeja's bowled well in some matches as well, but his batting form hasn't been great. And, coming in at number 7, you kind of need somebody to immediately get going. You can't have anybody who takes their time. You need somebody who can just blast from the off. And I think Akshar Patel's probably a better option there. And then it's a case of how do you make up your bowling? I mean, this means Hardik Pandya is not in my side, by the way. And I think he probably would be in Rohit Sharma's side, let's say, the first team that's picked for the start of the tournament, because he's the vice captain. And I don't like the vice captain role for that reason, because it almost feels like you have to play your vice captain. It was like when Ajinkya Rahane was vice captain of the Indian Test side. It felt like they just had to play him, even when he wasn't scoring runs. And I don't think that's particularly fair on other players. So I'd have Akshar Patel in there at number 7. And then you'd go for the 4 bowlers. I'd go definitely Arshdeep and Bumrah as your 2 quicks. Not necessarily like in that order at 8 and 9, but they'd be your 2 quicks. And then you've got to make a call, haven't you, on the pitch and the conditions as to whether you go with. I think your number 1 spinner is probably going to be Kuldeep Yadav, but there's an argument as to should it be Yuzvendra Chahal, given that he's just bowling better than he ever has at the moment. So yeah, if you're going on spin heavy pitches, those 2, and then you've got your 3 spinners and your 2 seamers, but then are you a seamer light? That's the question. So it's difficult. I mean, you could go with Siraj and then one of Kuldeep or Chahal. So then you've got your 2 spinners, your 3 seamers, and then if you've got any part-timers in there like Dubey, if he rolls his arm over, if you need to kill a couple of overs. Rohit Sharma's been bowling in the nets. So I think that he got asked the question, didn't he, at the press conference?
Yeah.
Oh, you've not got an off spinner in the squad. And he was putting his hand up and pointing to himself and saying, what about me? Don't forget about me. So you never know. We might see Rohit rolling back the years and bowling a bit of off spin, which would be great to see. I think he should have bowled more over the years, and he just hasn't. But, he did a useful job at times. He's got a hat-trick in the IPL.
Yeah.
It was many moons ago, but 2009. But he's got a hat-trick in the IPL. You can't take that away from him. So, yeah, it's a difficult. I don't know if I don't think they've gone with the right squad. I think it's too difficult for me to pick an 11 from there. Well, what do you feel? Any disagreements with that?
Not really. Ahead of the 50 overs World Cup as well, there was this conversation around the off spinner, and eventually there was an off spinner making his way. We'd not go down that territory now. But the 11, again, I'm comparing it to the 50 overs World Cup, where India had a stable 11, and it was only because of injury to Hardik that was rejigged, and then they found again their ideal 11 that they persisted with throughout. That's probably not going to be the case in the T20 World Cup. There are going to be a lot of horses for courses calls. The management would be exposed to a lot of brickbats, because no matter what 11 you come up with, there'd be people disgruntled with that. And barring 5 players, I think 5 players would feature regardless of the conditions. Rohit Sharma being the captain, obviously he'd fit in. But there are concerns, by the way, around his form of late as well. He started with the IPL on a great note. In the first 7 games, notched up around 297 runs. But since then, the returns have been thin. That's certainly an area of concern, and particularly against the left-arm pacers. Most teams these days boast of left-arm pacers and left-arm pacers who can crank up pace. So that will be an area of concern. Yashasvi Jaiswal striking some form, that's important, although not a certain in every 11. So we're talking about the certain. So Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Hardik Pandya, because he's the vice captain, and would be bizarre. I mean, going by conventional wisdom, you wouldn't expect him to be dropped at any point. Although if the team does play out of the box, one never knows. Jasprit Bumrah, quite deservedly, and Kuldeep Yadav, because you have to have a spinner. Although you might not entirely agree on that. And then Suryakumar Yadav. So that makes it 6 players. But beyond that, the remaining 5, that would be subject to a lot of conjectures.
Yeah, even if Rinku Singh was picked in this squad at the expense of whoever, it doesn't matter who you take out and who you put in. Whether it's Rinku Singh or Sandeep Sharma or all these guys, I mean, India have just got too many players, haven't they? Too many quality players, and it's difficult to fit them all into an 11. And it's almost like, it's almost like they'll pick their first 11 for that opening match of the World Cup, and they'll go with the tried, the tested, probably. So we'll have Hardik in there, you'll have Rohit in there, you'll have Kohli in there. Yeah. It'll just be business as usual. Jadeja will probably play as well. And then if you were to pick an alternate 11 of players in top form and just other players in and around the squad or whatever it might be, I reckon they'd beat the first 11. But actually, and that's the thing.
Yeah. India should be allowed to send 2 set of 11s. And I'm pretty sure the second set of 11 would just create some surprises. But talking about Shivam Dube now, he does feature in your 11 that you just shared. The challenge there is that Rohit Sharma got him to bowl comprehensively even in the death overs when India were playing against Afghanistan. So he wanted Shivam Dube to be prepared. But in the IPL, barring a couple of games, he hasn't got to bowl because obviously the impact player rule, and Chennai have riches in the bowling department, plenty of all-rounders as well. That has been an area of concern because Shivam Dube was looked at as an all-rounder, but does he have enough bowling momentum heading into the World Cup? Also, what role does he play for India? Because for CSK, when he comes into bat, he generally comes into bat in the middle overs. And that's the time when spinners are operating, and he's extremely good against the spinners. He's improved his game against the pacers, but that's what his strength is, batting against the spinners, scoring those big sixes against the spinners. But if he comes for India as a finisher, and we've seen that with the Rajasthan Royals as well, when they tried him as a finisher, it didn't really work out because the pacers would be in play. and Shivam Dube isn't particularly great against them. So are we in a position to utilize whatever resources we have at our disposal at their full potential? Are we in a position to give them that situation where they can thrive based on whatever their strengths are? That is going to be a crucial question.
It will be, and yeah, you're right. The impact player rule has, as Rohit Sharma said on another podcast, it's ruining the development of Indian all-rounders, and they're just not getting to bowl these overs because you've got specialist batters coming in, you've got specialist bowlers coming in. The all-rounder kind of role has almost gone, unless you're, one of those top all-rounders like your Jadejas and your Akshar Patels. If you're a Shivam Dube, who's a part-time bowler, but always did bowl, but just not necessarily his full quota. He's just not getting an opportunity. So you're right. He's not going to be necessarily in this 11 as an all-rounder. He will be your middle order batter, your finisher in the innings. And I don't think there's anybody apart from Rinku who's not in the squad who's doing it any better at the moment, particularly against spinners, but even against seamers in this season's IPL, his strike rate has improved dramatically. So I think he'll have a crucial role to play. I don't know if India, with the makeup of their squad, have necessarily got enough to win it. But as always, they'll be up there as favourites just because they're India, right? So it'll be India, England, Australia, maybe Pakistan might have an outside chance. But look, South Africa looks strong. New Zealand can turn up on the day. It's going to be quite a competitive T20 World Cup, I feel, but still a long way to go for that, of course. The IPL continues. A lot of form to be decided as well as to, who gets into that 11 for India and for teams around the world. Plenty of games left, almost, 3.5 weeks or whatever of it action left in this season's competition. We'll, of course, keep you posted once again next week and throughout the rest of the tournament. So at the moment, KKR looking good, Rajasthan looking decent as well, both on 16 points. All the rest of the sides have got it to do. No other places are really secured for those playoff spots. So lots of exciting action coming up in the next week or so. And we'll be back with you next week to talk some more. But that's all we've got time for this week. Do follow us on social media, both myself and Megha. Give us a like and a subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or via your podcast feed. And we'll speak to you again very soon.